Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans. What's going on, Star Wars Nation? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Nathan
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And it's been a while since we recorded. We took a little bit of a break after Ahsoka finished. Although, good news, the Screen Actors Guild strike has also ended. So that's really
good.
Yep. Very happy for all those hardworking actors.
They deserve it, man, because that was brutal on them to be given those kind of crap deals.
Yep. So we're just here to do a brief thing. This is news. Now, this is like 2 weeks old, but we haven't really... But Riz and I have had some stuff going on in our personal lives that has prevented us from doing this immediately.
Time has not been fair to either one of us.
Yeah. So for all two of you that may not have known it when it got announced, so a recent announcement was made from the behind-the-scenes department in Star Wars where Dave Filoni, everybody knows who Dave Filoni is. He's he was the producer. He directed a lot of things. Basically, almost everyone's favorite Star Wars content recently. He worked. He's done the Mandalorian. He just finished Ahsoka, and he's been behind both the Clone Wars and Rebels. He has recently been announced to now have been promoted to. And the official position is called Executive Vice President and Chief Creative Officer. So the best way to kind of define what's happened with him is that Kathleen Kennedy will still handle the business side of everything, but he has a much bigger active role in how Star Wars and like all Star Wars projects from this point forward. And the best way to describe what's happened is pretty much exactly what Dave said himself. In effect, he was previously a Jedi Knight. Now he's been promoted to having a seat on the council.
He has been granted the rank of Master.
Exactly.
Suck it, Vader.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so I want to read out a quick quote from Dave Filoni about this promotion he got. Because I think this will kind of help people understand what it is that this title means. Because when Nate and I were first talking about this title 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, that's a fancy title, but what the heck does it mean? So his quote is, in the past, in a lot of projects, I would be brought into it. I would see it after it had already developed a good ways. In the new role, it's opened up to basically everything that's going on. When we're planning the future, what we're doing now, I'm involved in the inception phase. And the way I interpret this is from here on out until he's no longer in that role, which I hope never happens because he's amazing, is he has the keys to the kingdom to basically write the lore for Star Wars and do all the continuity checks and help design all the content going forward. So TV shows, movies, comics, video games, I think would all fall under his jurisdiction. Probably more the movie and the TV show than the other stuff, but I'd imagine he's still fairly involved with all of the above.
And I'm particularly happy with that because if there's one thing that's been frustrating with Star Wars recently, it's been that we're constantly seeing projects get announced, but then they get canceled. There was a show that was supposed to revolve around whatever that female character from the Mandalorian, the Gina Carano character.
The
Yeah,
Rangers of the New Republic.
yeah, she was. They were gonna give her her own show, but then now, to be fair, I mean, the reason why, we, you know, why they didn't want her to come back, I guess, was understandable. But then they announced, okay, we're gonna drop. I think her name is Caleb. No, no, no. I can't. Wow, I can't remember her character's name, but they said that they were gonna.
Cara Dune.
Yeah, Cara Dune. Uh, they were going to drop her and then have Hera take over her role, which I'm thinking like, oh wow, that sounds exciting because I love Hera. But then
Yeah.
that show gets canceled. They're saying that like those two um, those two pilots that Mando frequently has encounters with in the Mandalorian, and we also saw one of them, Carson Teva in Ahsoka. Like
Yeah.
he was supposed to get his own spinoff, and now that's been canceled. Like,
Well, no. So Carson was supposed to be in Rangers of the New Republic.
oh,
That's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But yeah, I thought he was going to be part of that. But in either case, yeah, he's gotten safted a little bit.
yeah, and then we get like Skeleton Crew, which was supposed to come out this year, but now it's been delayed. Like I I just feel like with Dave Filoni there, like at the very least, we're not going to be seeing all these production difficulties where all these things keep getting announced, only for like a bunch of them to be canceled.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem with at least Skeleton Crew is that we had the Guild Actor strike and
Yeah.
the writer strike going on, and that kind of delayed out some of the work. But they still have it on the books to release it next year sometime.
hmm Now, I don't. I think that's the main thing that's going to change, though, is that we're not going to be seeing a bunch of projects be announced only to get canceled. Like I think that stuff will be cleaner, but as far as like the quality and everything, I don't think we're really going to be looking at any like maybe the most that we'll get is that maybe like with like especially this new trilogy that we're getting with Ray and her new Jedi Order. Maybe Dave Filoni will have a much bigger involvement in that because, as far as I know, the only involvement he had with the sequel trilogy was that he worked in the art department for the Force Awakens, and he apparently like he was supposed to be like he did a lot of concept art, and he also his voice was apparently used for like a screaming Jakku villager, but like there's absolutely none of his fingerprints
Yeah.
on The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. So I think he'll definitely have a creative hand in that, which I will welcome completely. I I but there's not much else that I think will fundamentally change, and honestly, I don't think that much has to change aside from him just getting a bit more of some creativity in it because I mean that's really all that you need. I mean,
Well, I mean, I think having him in this role is extremely important, though, because, even before Disney took over the franchise, Dave was the one doing all the curing of the little nitpicks and issues that we had with the prequels and everything with the Clone Wars and Rebels. And so he was the one that kind of breathed in a new life to the franchise with the Clone Wars, Rebels, and then as we got into like the Mandoverse stuff, he really kind of started fixing that up as well and providing more context.
mhm.
So, in my opinion, he's already kind of been doing a lot of the creative lore building and world building anyway, but he wasn't doing it for everything because, correct me if I'm wrong, he wasn't part of every TV show that came out. Like, I don't think he was a part of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan.
He according to this, he was involved a lot in the Book of Boba Fett. Like he was a director, writer, and executive producer. But he had no involvement in Obi-Wan.
Yeah. So I think if he was involved with everything in the same way from the beginning, he could have helped shape things out a little bit better. And I'm not going to say I didn't like the Obi-Wan TV show because I did like it,
Yeah.
but I think if he was involved and he was there from the get-go, we might have gotten a stronger story than what we got, because I personally think the story is a little bit weak at points.
Yeah, honestly, I thought that he was involved in Obi-Wan up until we started doing this podcast, but realizing that now, that actually makes a whole lot of sense, because if he was involved in Obi-Wan, we would probably, maybe Maul would have made a cameo, and you can definitely guarantee that there would have been flashbacks with him and Anakin and Ahsoka.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, because the most we got that was like the closest thing to a flashback was like, they have like Tamura Morrison play like this veteran homeless clone who's like, "Hey, can you give me some credits for a homeless veteran or
Yeah.
something?" Like, so yeah, I kind of wish that he got this promotion a little bit earlier, because
Right.
I liked Obi-Wan. I'll go to my grave defending that show, but it's got issues. I
And,
can't
and
lie
that's
about that.
and that's the thing, is that if he was there from the beginning, like when Mandoverse was first brought to Inception,
Hmm.
I think we'd have a much stronger thing, because we have great parts of it, like the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, but then we got our weaker parts, like the Obi-Wan series and the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
And I think that's kind of a testament to where he's been involved mostly. And I know he had roles in Boba Fett, but I question how much involvement he really had, given he was also writing the Ahsoka TV show at the time
yeah.
and worried about the season 3 of Mando.
I think the only way I can kind of see him having any real fingerprints on Book of Boba Fett is that they brought in Cad Bane later in that show.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because like usually he likes to bring in a lot of his other characters, and like, yeah, the only guy I can remember is Cad Bane, which you would think if it was a Boba Fett show, maybe he would have brought in some other characters, that, like that one bounty hunter that wears like this like really big dome looking thing on his head, Imbo,
Oh, yeah, I know
who
who you're
who
talking about.
who Dave Filoni voices, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the inclusion of Cad Bane is the only real involvement that he had. Because, well, okay.
Well, I think maybe
Fennec,
also the Grogu and Din Djarin stuff.
yeah, and Fennec Shand is in there too. So
Yeah.
the Ming Na Wen character.
But
So
I don't know if Phoenix Sand would be a complete Dave Filoni imprint in this TV show, because she was very integral to the Boba Fett's character,
yeah.
and so if my assumption is correct that he was not super involved, he may not have put in a lot of time on her character,
Hmm.
and probably focused in more on the Mando 2.5 season stuff that we jokingly call.
Yeah. I think the one thing that some people are worried about, and this is a criticism where I'm sympathetic to it, but I ultimately disagree, is that a lot of people think that like Dave Filoni's Star Wars world feels a little too narrow, because like he's created a certain set of characters, and they're always the ones that are going to pop up. And the biggest example that they like to use, and I think the only reason that they use this example is because they hate these characters, is you have the Martez sisters. The Martez sisters are these two characters that Ahsoka meets in the last season of the Clone Wars. And okay, I apologize if I'm spoiling this for Riz, but we later see those characters again in the Bad Batch.
Hmm.
Like they pop up. I can't remember the exact circumstances, but I do know that the Bad Batch encounters them, and like they're thinking like you're bringing in like the same characters over and over again, which I mean, I guess that kind of makes a little bit of sense, but I ultimately disagree, because I feel like Dave Filoni has, Dave Filoni, not all of his characters hit bullseyes. I'm not a big fan of the Martez sisters, but at the same time, he's also taken characters that were may have originally existed before he was involved in Star Wars, but he made them into more interesting characters. Like, and a perfect example was in Clone Wars during like those bounty hunter episodes. Like, you have Bosk, that lizard Transdotion bounty hunter, and that guy Dengar. Both of those guys are in The Empire Strikes Back, but they have absolutely no lines. But Dave Filoni made them more characters. Like, Bosk is like this aggressive dude who, you know, doesn't care about anything. Like, he just wants his money. And Dengar is like this, you know, just this idiot that no one respects. Like,
Yeah.
hey boss, who's your girlfriend? Shut up, Dengar. Like, so I just I think that he's perfect for this because like he can take other characters like, and another example, Barriss Ophi, a character that has no lines in the prequel trilogy, and he's taken that character and turned her into a character that every Star Wars fan probably hates.
I was about to say, see, it's probably one of the most hated figures in Star Wars outside of Rey at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he gave Plo Koon. Well, okay, Plo Koon. I mean, he apparently always had a soft spot for Plo Koon. Like, he went to the premiere of Revenge of the Sith cosplay as Plo Koon.
And
So
that's always been interesting to me. Why Plo Koon back then?
yeah, because he has no lines in the prequel trilogy.
I mean, maybe he was involved in some legend books, but I don't know.
But yeah, so I'm personally looking forward to it just because I mean Dave Filoni. Most of his original characters, not all of them. I mean I mean I'm not a fan of the Martez sisters. I get it, but
Hmm.
90% of the characters that he's created are like characters that we all love in Star Wars. Like, everybody loves Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Rex. You know, I mean, I know there are some people who now all of a sudden hate Sabine for no reason, but like,
I don't. That's a complex thing that needs another podcast on its own.
yeah, most people love the Rebels characters though, and he's reinvented characters that aren't originally his. Like, Maul Maul is arguably one of the most like tragic characters in Star Wars, but all those tragic elements come from what Dave Filoni did with Maul.
And I mean, the best example, in my opinion, and you know, Nate, you might have had a different childhood than me, but when I was growing up and watching the prequels, everyone hated Anakin.
Yeah.
Like nobody liked Anakin. They all thought Anakin was whiny. He was too conceited, too childish. Nobody liked him. But then Filoni came in, created the Clone Wars, and gave Anakin more meat to the skeleton. And now he's one of my favorite characters in the entirety of the franchise.
Hmm.
And I'm not even talking Vader. I don't care about Vader. I care about Anakin.
Yeah. To the point
So,
where like everyone like I mean everybody used to hate Hayden Christensen. Now everybody is like cheering whenever Hayden Christensen is announced.
oh, and
They
it's
come back.
amazing. I feel so happy for that guy
Mhm.
because he's genuinely feeling the love that he should have gotten in the beginning had Lucas given the proper writing to it.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I'm looking forward to this. I really like. I this actually makes me more excited for Ray's new trilogy. Now, granted, I already have high hopes for that because you know, because it just seems like an interesting idea, especially with a lot of people saying that like the Ahsoka trilogy is trying to like subtly hint at like there being like the main villain Abeloth, which we took
Hmm.
we already spoke about that in our Ahsoka
Yeah.
podcast. I don't need to talk about that, but with Dave Filoni kind of having more creativeness to it, I just like I'm good. I mean, I know now looking at it, like Dave Filoni had some involvement with Book of Boba Fett, and I'm not a huge fan of that show, it but every other show he's been great, and I know that he didn't have any involvement in Andor, which everybody seems to love, but as most people
One
know,
day.
we're not making many friends when we say this, but you and I were not a huge fan of Andor when we checked it out together. So
One day we will actually sit down and watch Andor, and we'll try and power through it.
yeah,
Because I get told all the time, once we get past the first 2 episodes, we're gonna love it. It's just trying to get through those first 2 episodes that's sore.
yeah.
And I mean, when have I ever made friends when I podcast?
I mean,
I'm always the negative one.
I really hate to bring up the Toku Secrets podcast, but apparently, like a lot of people like a certain Sentai that you think is the worst Sentai ever. So yeah, we don't make many friends with that type of stuff.
Nope. So, but
But
yeah, I'm excited for Filoni to get the new role, and it probably we probably won't see the fruits of this new role for at least 2 or 3 years,
mm-hmm,
because everything we're gonna see between now and like 2 years from now has already been pretty well developed.
mm-hmm.
But the stuff that comes after, that's when we'll see the real Filoni empire come together.
Yeah, and
So
I'm all for it.
just want to throw that out there before people start complaining about if Skeleton Crew sucks, which I hope it doesn't. If it does, they're gonna try and say, "Oh well, Filoni took over. That's why it's not great." So
Well,
just saying it now, don't do that because you need to give him a little bit of time to get into the role and really put his work out there.
yeah. But yeah, in Dave we trust.
Exactly.
Anything else we need to say?
Nope.
Okay, well, that about wraps this up. Just a pretty short news thing. A little bit of some updates on what we're going to be doing. Riz and I are going to be taking a look at the original trilogy very soon. He actually has we actually got VHS rips of like the movies before they got constantly specialized, so we're looking forward to watching that. We're going to do individual reviews on those. We're definitely going to be doing other Star Wars animated stuff, the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars. At some point, I still have a bunch of book reviews that I'm going to be doing. I actually, just to give you guys, I actually have an idea for a special podcast, which I'm hoping to do soon, where I'm going to read the book, The Princess and the Scoundrel, and The Courtship of Princess Leia. And those books are both the books that tell the story of how Han and Leia got married in both the Legends and canon timeline. And then I'm going to compare them, although truth be told, I think the canon book is actually going to end up being better based on what I remember from the Legends. But that'll be a podcast for a different time. Uh, if you're listening to us on Spotify and iTunes, we love you guys, and just leave us any review, any review out of 5 stars. If you're listening to this on YouTube, first of all, we very much thank you, and also leave any comments down below with your thoughts on what on Dave being promoted and any other content you'd like for us to watch. Subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. Check us out at animesecrets.org and all of our social media pages. And that's about it. Once again, we thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us. And we'll see you guys next time for our next podcast. But until that time, you guys stay safe. We love you. And may the Force be with you.